You are listening to Hilary Topper on Air.
Welcome to Hilary Topper on Air. Today, we are tackling an often overlooked but crucial subject. What is your spouse good for? Joining us today is Kim Christensen. She's one of Long Island's premier attorneys in estate planning, elder law, and special needs law firm with the Russo Law Group. With years of experience and expertise, Kim helps families make informed decisions that protect their futures. From Medicaid rules to retirement planning and tax strategies, today's episode is packed with actionable items and advice for couples. So, whether you're planning for the future or simply curious about how the law impacts your marriage, this conversation is for you. Let's get started. Welcome, Kim, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
So, can you give us a little bit about your backgrounds and how long you've been with the Russo Law Group?
Sure. So I am a partner here at Russo Law Group. I've been here approximately 18 years and counting.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've been here for a lot of my own personal milestones as well as my professional ones. I am an estate planner, and I'm also an elder law and special needs planner. So I help you plan, and what I like to call it is put your roadmap in place to make sure that your wishes and your legacy are protected. I'm happy to sit with you and do that. That's the role that I perform. And we, as you know, we have multiple offices. I primarily work out of the Lido Beach location. I manage that office. And I'm also in the Garden City office as the lead planner. And then there's also the Islandia office, but I'm primarily in Lido Beach and Garden City.
Can you explain how Medicaid rules differ for married couples versus single individuals?
Yeah, so before I get into that, the title, what is your spouse good for, right? We've all heard that old adage, what's your spouse good for? But I love it because believe it or not, under the law, your spouse is good for a lot, right? And they're good in the Medicaid arena, they're good in the estate tax planning arena, the retirement account arena. I think that maybe three things we can touch on today. But yeah, there are benefits under the law to being married. And the first one you just raised, right? Medicaid rules and your spouse, right? That's what I call it. And we know that Medicaid is a means tested program, right? Which means that if I want to get covered for care, I can't have too many assets, right? But Medicaid says, well, we're afraid you're just going to transfer those assets and us to cover you at, approximately $16,000 a month. So for nursing home care, they instituted a 5-year look back. From the date you want Medicaid to cover your care, they're going to look back 5 years to see if you made any transfers out of your name. And if you did, they think you did it on purpose, and they're going to penalize you based on those transfers. So what good is your spouse for when it comes to that? Well, what they say is a spouse is an exempt transferee. So if I have a crisis situation and I'm sitting with too many assets to go on Medicaid, even within the 5-year look back, I'm able to transfer those assets to my spouse, and I won't be penalized because it's the spouse. The spouse is the exemption, and that's the key here. So in the Medicaid arena, spouse versus individual, married versus individual, that was your initial question. You can make transfers within the 5-year look back from spouse to spouse and not be penalized. So we've seen situations, sadly, a spouse needs nursing home very quickly and the house is still in their name and some assets are still in their name. And the community spouse is worried. How are they going to take care of themselves? Well, we're able to do spousal transfers and under the Medicaid laws and protect those assets and get their loved one the care they needed. Whereas the individual would be subject to that 5-year look back. So that's a really important one.
That's huge.
Huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. So, are there limitations to what a healthy spouse can retain under the Medicaid guidelines?
That's a good question. So there is something out there, and it's called spousal refusal. Under normal circumstances, if I gave all my assets to the spouse and did not implement spousal refusal, I'd be subject to limitations where I'd be asked to contribute my assets toward my spouse's care. But here in New York, we're able to implement something called spousal refusal that says I'm going to refuse to contribute toward the cost of care for my spouse, not out of lack of love and affection, right? Because I need to still live in the community. And then that will shield that spouse, for the most part, from having to contribute. So they're
Huh.
able to keep the income and the assets that they have. Now there's exceptions to every rule, but that's where we are with it.
All right. So, are there any common mistakes that couples make when planning for Medicaid eligibility?
I think the mistake is, and I wouldn't call it a mistake because, you're in a crisis, and
Yeah.
you're doing the best you can. But the mistake or something that could have been done differently is getting that legal advice as soon as possible.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I've seen too many people come in and say to me, well, we knew we had too much, so we spent it all down, or we didn't bother to come in because there's no way we would have been eligible. And I'm here to say that don't do that. You don't need to. There's always
Wow.
something we could help you with. There's always something we can do. It's always great to plan in advance. If you can plan in advance, that's wonderful. But if you're in a crisis, don't not come in because you're not sure. Come in and then we can help you and guide you. So I think that, as they say, knowledge is power. And the more, information you have, then the better you can plan for.
All right, let's switch gears for a moment to retirement accounts. Why are retirement accounts such a critical part of estate planning for couples?
Yeah, so, you know, this section I call retirement accounts and your spouse, right? I got to tie it back into my theme. I was thinking we probably should have done this on Valentine's Day, but I'm okay. um, so retirement accounts, it's such a critical part to a person's estate plan for multiple reasons. Number one, we're talking about financial security for yourself and your spouse, right? And this it was able to grow tax deferred, and now it can be used to create that income stream for that security in your retirement years and generate that income for you. And when it comes to beneficiary rules, right, there's an exception to the 10-year payout. So for a very long time under the IRA rules, right, if you named an individual person, whether it be your spouse, whether it be your child, whether it be your cousin, they had the ability to inherit it and stretch it over their lifetime. And what that did for them is it spread the tax out so you weren't, so to speak, hit with a heavy tax all at once. It was a tax savings method. But then what happened is the law just recently changed. And it says unless you're a spouse, and there are certain other exceptions, but unless you're a spouse, you have to take those distributions over a 10-year period. You can no longer stretch it over the lifetime of an individual. But your spouse, and here's what they're good for, does still have the ability to stretch it over their life.
Huh.
So when I'm counseling my clients, I say, remember name your spouse first, if that's something you want to do, and then your children, so they can help, number one, have the security of the income stream for the rest of their life. But number two, they have that benefit of stretching that IRA over the balance of their lifetime, which will help absorb some of the taxes. So, I think it's a really a good
Wow,
exemption there. So
that's
it's
great.
benefit
Wow. All
exemption.
right, so let's now switch gears to estate planning.
Sure.
Um, can you give us a overview of how taxes impact married couples differently?
Yeah. So estate taxes and your spouse, right? How does it impact it a little differently? And the benefit, it has to do with the exemption that you're afforded under the law. So let me speak to that for a moment. So when I pass away or anybody passes away, the government wants to add up everything that I own. And I mean everything, right? Bank accounts, real estate, life insurance, brokerage accounts, everything. They're pulling from every direction. And they're going to add it all up and they're going to come to a number. And if you're over the estate tax exemption amount, you've got to pay a tax on your estate. And it can be pretty significant. So under the law, there's a federal exemption. And then there's, here in New York, there's a New York State exemption. So there's a federal tax too, and a New York State estate tax. I affectionately call them death taxes, right? Did I die with too much money in my name? Now, right now in 2025, each person is entitled to a federal estate tax exemption of $13.99 million. And each person is entitled to New York State estate tax exemption of $7.16 million.
Hmm.
But if I have a spouse and each one of us is entitled to that, then I have double the amount.
Wow,
Yeah. And
that's
under the
huge.
estate tax planning laws, I am able to create a document, a will or a trust that makes sure I utilize each person's exemption. So by the end of my life, way in the future, when we're both not here anymore, then my estate can go estate tax free or certainly minimize estate taxes by making sure your legal documents properly allocate those exemptions, right? And they're called a credit shelter trust is one of the methods you could use. But it's really, really a significant benefit to having a spouse because you can double that exemption if you plan properly in your legal documents.
That is so interesting. This is great information. Thank you.
You're
Now,
welcome.
let's talk about some practical advice for couples. So, for a couple just starting the planning process, what's the first thing they should do? And how often should couples review their estate or financial plans with an attorney?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing you should do, right, it is confront it, implement it, make that appointment. And then what's nice about these appointments, at least I think, is it's an opportunity kind of to organize what you have, right? Because you're going to want to bring in all of your existing legal documents if you have them, right? It's like a checkup. Let's see what you have. Let's make sure it says what you want it to say. It does what you want it to do. It names the people that you want to name. I mean, sometimes we open these documents and they say, wow, well, this person isn't even here anymore, who's my executor. That's just an example,
Yeah, it
practical example.
happens.
So you want to gather your existing legal documents, and then you also want to gather your get your financial house in order. See, okay, I have these accounts, I have these properties, I have these life insurance, and we get to see how they're titled. And you'd be surprised how things come together and you're able to now do a review of your own finances. It's really very helpful. And then that helps the planner like me, set forth the best plan for you. right? So I'd say the first step is making that appointment, then getting organized, and then sitting with your planner, someone like me, who tell them everything. Spare no detail, because the more you tell us, the more we can, best. There's no cookie cutter plan, so we can best guide you and tailor it to you. And then you know what? You'll have peace of mind. And that's it's
Absolutely.
really, the best gift you can give yourself and your loved ones.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear some kind of a success story where you did proper planning and it made a huge difference for a couple.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have so many, and it actually warms my heart. But recently, after even the first meeting, the person said to me, I was kind of nervous to confront this, but the way we just spoke about it, and that I know I'm going to get everything in order, actually I feel so relieved. They used the word relieved.
Mm.
And then she said, and I'm going to sleep well tonight, and I haven't in so long.
Aw.
And I know, and I said, well, thank you. That was one of the nicest things to hear, because
Yeah.
that's what we're here for, to help and to give that relief. That's
Yeah.
not an easy thing to confront. But if you do it, look, you do it, and it's set, and you have that peace of mind, like I said before. But one of the other success stories, and there's many. I'll give you two. One, they came in, and they didn't even have estate tax planning on their radar.
Wow.
And they were just coming in. They knew they needed a will. They thought they needed a trust, but they really didn't know about the limits that you can have. And they didn't know how much assets they had. Not because they didn't have a general sense, but when you start adding things up, if you have multiple properties and then you fold in life insurance and then you fold in retirement accounts and your checking in your savings, sometimes you're pleasantly surprised, right? And then I shared with them, this is what the tax would look like, and this is what we can do. And we did estate tax planning to the point where they felt comfortable. They're going to live the rest of their life the way they want to, but there will be zero taxes lost. And their children, one of them, which is a special needs child, will have the benefit of getting all of their assets, so they have that security.
Great.
To me, that's a success story. You're
Mhm.
making sure your legacy and those you want to care for, have the assets you worked so hard for to take care of them.
Yeah.
That to me is,
Without a doubt. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing all your insights with us today. So could you um provide us with information as to how to get into contact with you and the Russo Law Group to schedule an appointment to learn more information?
Sure. You can contact us. We have a client services department, and we're just more than happy to help you. They will listen to what your needs are and then match you up with the appropriate person in the appropriate location to have that planning meeting. Our phone number is 516-683-1717. And then you just say, I'd like to make an appointment. And from there, your client experience will go rather smoothly, so we can make sure, that we address your needs. And we also have a wonderful website, Russo Law Group, PC. And it's filled with so much information, because we want to be a resource to you. So there's blogs on there and articles and our bios, so you can feel comfortable with us, and ways to contact us. If you're more of a online person, or, you can email us, or schedule an appointment with us. So I encourage you to go to our website, www.vjrussolaw.com, It's excellent.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today.
No, thank you. I really enjoy, getting the message out. And, I joke around, what good is your spouse for? But certainly in the legal arena, we have a lot of positives.
I want to take a moment to thank my incredible sponsors who make this podcast possible. First, a huge thank you to the Russo Law Group, Long Island Signature, Estate Planning, Elder Law, and Special Needs Law Firm. Their expertise and dedication are unmatched. For more information about their services, visit their website at vjrussolaw.com. Next, a big shout out to Playtry. Whether you're into swimming, biking, running, or all three, Playtry has everything you need to excel. Thinking of joining the business world? They also offer franchise opportunities. Visit playtry.com to explore or make a purchase. And finally, I have to give some love to Vimazzi, the shoes I personally rely on, both for training and racing. These are a game changer for athletes. Check out their website at Vimazzi, that's VIMAZI.com for more information. And don't forget, a special discount code is available on atriathletesdiary.com. That's my blog. And if you go to atriathletesdiary.com/discounts, you'll see a whole host of discounts, including Vimazzi shoes. Thank you, sponsors, for your support. You're helping us bring this podcast to life and keep the community thriving.